Ian,
we're live. Here we go.
Coming to you live is the Auto Hub Show, changing automotive one show at a time with Ian and Jeff. And here we go.
And here we go.
6 to 9 months. Which of these changes are going to persist, and what does the landscape look like in terms of differences in like 6 to 9 months?
Sure. Well, so first, I guess I would say, I think the more complex the system is, the less likely you are to be right when you kind of try to predict it. And I think the auto industry is a pretty complex system, so the odds that any I'd say here is right is just not that high. But I would say 6 to 9 months isn't that long. If we were looking out, 2 years, 3 years, I think my guess would be the world looks a lot more like it did pre-pandemic than anything else. The next 6 to 9 months, I think a lot of things could happen. I do think that there have been so many odd distortions in the economy in general that I think in auto in particular for the last 2 years, whether it's car prices shooting the moon or interest rates moving up, demand kind of spiking, probably related a lot to stimulus, and then really kind of dropping down so people get more anxious. I think that there's so many odd distortions happening right now that, to me, my guess is the next year or two is an unwinding of a lot of those distortions. And I think a lot of the things, my view would be a lot of things that many people believe are going to persist and even permanent change that result from what we've all experienced in the last 2 years. I think it's less likely to persist than maybe many others think. I think that we'll kind of head slowly but surely back to a little bit before. Things that we've all learned over the last 20, 30 years of our career, which is definitely true. But right now, we're definitely where it's by.
Okay, that's a good perspective. So my takeaway from that is it's going to look a lot more like 2018, 2019 in the future than it does today. What changes that we've learned over the last 2 years, for industry-wide, are going to persist? So has anything fundamentally changed? And so what do you think is going to look actually different and not just regress back to the way things were run prior to COVID?
So we'll find out. But I think some of the things, one of the areas that I think people believe will persistently change, that I'm not sure I agree will persistently change, is kind of this idea of carrying less supply and kind of making more money per car. I think that the world's a competitive place, and everyone wants to do the best they can. And I think that probably the competitive pressures they kind of drove OEMs to the past to produce, to kind of cyclically produce too many cars and too few cars, and profits kind of move around into that. I think those are probably persistent forces. I don't really understand why those would necessarily change. I think that part of what's happened in the whole world over the last couple of years is just the supply chains have completely broken, but that's hyper concentrated in auto. I think auto has the most complex, the most global, and probably the most overlapping supply chains of anything. Many OEMs use the same suppliers, who use the same suppliers, who use the same suppliers. And so we saw so much sort of coordinated production of supply. And the fact that kind of prices and profits go up when supply is low is probably not super surprising. It's extraordinarily true when not only does supply go down, but also demand goes up because there's so much money kind of sloshing around the economy for so many kind of different reasons. And I think people look at that and say, man, I want that to stay the same, which I think is a pretty natural instinct. But in my mind, at least, I think that basically the supply chain disruptions and all the other crazy distortions in the world created the conditions that allowed everyone to kind of act similarly, and it was a very profitable way to act. But I think people ultimately will kind of go try to chase their own ball and try to do what's best for them. And I think that then it will probably look a lot more like it looked before, as these supply chains mend and everyone doesn't act in a kind of coordinated fashion just because they have no other choices. So that's one area where I think there's a lot of discussion now about all the things that have been learned. I think what was learned there was that when there's not a lot of supply, prices go up and people make money. I think that's that wasn't like a particularly unique lesson from history. And I think the question is, will there are mechanisms that will allow people to coordinate in the future to achieve those same goals? And my personal view would be that I doubt, but who knows?
It's great. It's great. Thanks markets already. So let's take it to like the wholesale side of things, because most of the folks in this room, this conference, are somewhat connected to wholesale. You guys raised a lot of eyebrows earlier this year when you bought, Augusta's U.S. physical assets. As you look forward 2 years in the wholesale space, it seems like there's a lot of change going on. Any thoughts on how you think the wholesale market, the auction industry, upsell selling, upstream selling, et cetera, will evolve in the next 2 years?
So, I mean, this right there is going to be kind of in our interest. So, I guess I want to cap you before I say it, and people should take it with a grain of salt that makes sense. Like that would be, I think that one of the distortions that I think occurred when supply chains broke and money was sloshing around, car prices shot up, is that every consumer all of a sudden had an asset that had a bunch of equity in it, and that changes things quite a bit. Right? That makes it a lot easier to acquire cars directly from customers. So something that on we do with the wholesale market is all of a sudden there's not enough cars around for rental car companies to get cars, and so they become net buyers out of wholesale channels and sellers. And so I think all these things happen that cause auctions to get a lot less volume, and for wholesale prices to go up quite a bit, and for those wholesale prices to also
We're going to go ahead and just move forward into the show. Sorry about the audio quality, so we're going to go from there.
But it does look really good on LinkedIn.
You can definitely watch it. It is available on our YouTube channel and via audio. Sorry about the audio quality. It was a live event. I did try and clean it up, but it's not perfect. So let's go ahead with the video. Here we go. And good morning and welcome.
Everybody wants to be part of a bigger story.
We're a small company, but we're going to change the whole industry. I'm Salmis. I'm the regional dealer administrator here in our Open Road Auto Group in the Port Moody region.
My name is Andrew Championi, and I handle all the reconditioning for Open Road Auto Group in the Port Moody region.
Frontline ready means all the cars that we have reconditioned mechanically or cosmetically are ready to be sold to customers and delivered to them. Because of our holding costs, it costs us money when we have cars on our lot and when we don't get them delivered to customers as soon as possible.
The former method did not work for us just because we weren't actually tracking anything when the vehicles were inputted into Excel.
Rapid Recon is a very powerful tool. We have implemented it at all our stores for a reason. It's because we see how important it is.
It was just a lot more accurate when we had Rapid Recon, as you can measure when the car was dropped and then when the car is finished.
The previous ways that we were using weren't as effective and didn't create that sense of ownership that we feel with using the program.
Rapid Recon is a powerful program, and I could not imagine using any other software.
We wanted instant success. We wanted to go out there. We wanted to start selling 150 used cars. That's our goal for this year, is to get 150 used cars out a month and get about 120 new Fords in our market. And that would put us, in the top 5 in our region. So what we did is Dennis came in and showed me what Rapid Recon did. It was kind of stumbling at first. You have to put a lot of priority on it. You have to make sure from the top down that we're using it. But slowly but surely, we're able to see where our bottlenecks are. We were able to notice that we probably needed to stock more parts inside. So we started stocking certain parts inside. Then we also noticed that, getting the P&As over to the parts guys and having them returned in a timely manner wasn't happening. So we got another back counter person. So, and that's not necessarily going to be the same for everybody, but in any business, you want to know what's slowing your velocity down. And that's what this tool is able to do. In a snapshot, I can go in a day, I can see what my problem cars are. I don't have to go back there and we do a trade walk every morning, so I see them, but it's only as good as my mind remembers how long they've been out there. Rapid Recon shows you clear, concise, in a very visual form, red, yellow, where I need to go, where I need to spend my time and my manpower. And it's helped us dramatically increase or decrease the amount of times those cars are sitting back there. And we all know that there's a cost for things sitting on our shelves. Every day there's a cost to these things as long as they sit. So the quicker I can get them out, the more efficient I can get them out, the more money I'm going to make outside, the quicker I'm having it on the internet, which is another key to our success is a strong internet presence. It all ties in. It all starts with this first reconditioning stage. And I'd like to think that Rapid Recon helped us not only see the problem, but be able to manage the problem and get the results that we needed.
Good morning, and a special thank you to Rapid Recon. Few book recommendations. If you're not aware, Rapid Recon has a great book called Master Auto Dealership Speed to Sale. You can request that on their website. You can also, of course, request a demo of the product. A couple other books that I just sort of pulled up for car guys: The Greatest Cars Ever Made, and Bob Lutz, Car Guys versus the Bean Counter. So if you're looking for a gift book for obviously your car guy friends, obviously Master Auto Dealership Speed to Sale if they're in the dealership business, but if they're just car people, there's a couple recommendations. Go ahead with the disclaimer, Jeff.
Well, thank you. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Rapid Recon Show. And of course, the views and opinions shared on this show today are those of our guest speakers and our guests and don't necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the Auto Hub Show, Ian Nethercott or Jeff Polo. And thank you, Ian. Go for it.
So we're talking a little bit about used cars, hot topic in 2022. And just in case you weren't aware, we were just at Used Car Week in beautiful San Diego. The presence of a little bit of military hardware, the Navy SEAL training yard, and some new ships, also some old ships. But also there was a lot going on about used cars. If you didn't catch the video early, it was the Evil Empire, also known as Carvana, the interview with one of their co-founders. And it was actually quite insightful. You can check it out on our YouTube channel, wherever you get your podcasts. I have to apologize for the audio. It was a live show. I will have about 8 to 10 hours of additional footage from the show edited soon, and I'll clean up that audio as well. So go ahead, Jeff.
Well, joining us today, we have a very distinguished panel of Rapid Reconites and a big fan of them. And we'll start off with Dennis McGinn, who is the Rapid in the Recon, the everything there is of Rapid Recon. Not everything. He's just sort of the guy that stands atop of the ship and says, "Ahoy, mateys, take me forward." Dennis, introduce yourself. Tell us a bit about yourself. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, gosh. Thank you for inviting me. And I love your show. It was very exciting. And what a day, what a time to be in the middle of this business. It's changing fast. I think there are a lot of things that can be done to really help everybody in this industry. I'll talk about that in a minute. I came from the technology industry, very familiar with the OEM side of the business. Even at Hewlett Packard, I worked with General Motors and Ford and BMW and Fiat and Ferrari, a lot of these guys. And then I got pulled into the retail business about 16, 17 years ago, and found out that the two don't look anything alike. They don't even like each other. But so I started this company about 13 years ago, basically because somebody said, "Hey, this reconditioning thing is really a joke." I mean, we all pretend we know what's going on, but we don't really, because we don't really have any good information and nobody trusts anybody. So they all make it up. And if I go around and ask people how we doing, they'll give me best case numbers because they don't want to embarrass anybody. And so that was the starting point of what we're doing here today. And I said, this is a problem, big problem. And nobody realized how much money was being, soaked up in not knowing what your average days in recon was. It was just enormous. And, the average people would say, "Hey, it's 2 or 3 days. Don't bother me. I don't have a problem." But it was really 16 or 18 days. And when you add that up to every 2.5 days in an average, taking reconditioning, average days of reconditioning down is another turn. So it's pretty easy. Do the math. It's an enormous number. You got 100 cars. You know, you want to turn those over 2 or 3 more times a year. That's what you do. You take days out of your actual average days in recon. So anyway, I appreciate being invited here. My passion about this business is that we are still in the early phase of turning this into more of a organized measure and manage business, like happened in the technology industry over the last 30, 40 years. I was there I was there watching all this thing come together. And it's the reason that everybody's got these cool phones in their pocket. I mean, you wouldn't have it, or they would cost 10 grand if you hadn't done that. Well, that hasn't happened yet in the retail business and reconditioning. We got a couple of thousand customers. We probably have 500 or 1,000 that have figured it out. And so we've got a lot of good examples of how to do it right. And we know what happens when you do it right. But we're still chipping away at kind of the early stage of this thing. And the amount of money that is sitting there to be had, again, it's when you take days out of that, everybody wins. Costs less, people have less work, less stress in the organization. Customers don't pay less for the car, because your cost is lower. So anyway, that's the whole idea. It's a whole economic conundrum. And I like to say, well, you know, I know how Dale and velocity and all that was a big thing. I think that's done. I think it's now about time to line. It's about, that is the metric, the measure and manage of time to line drives everything. Profitability per car, cost and recon, and it's going to get more so as customers, the buyers, want to know everything now. I mean, they don't want to just see the Carfax. They want to know what reconditioning was done to the cars. They know they're paying more than they'd like to. They're going to keep the cars longer than they probably had, and it'll stay in their cohort. And so we got to do a better job of getting the information organized in the right time frame and getting that information in front of the customers, because they want to get to it. So that was kind of my hello. And I've got a couple of folks on here, so I'm going to share the stage here with a couple of my friends. Ryan, you want to jump in and talk a little bit about your experience?
Absolutely, Dennis. Thank you, Jeff and Ian, for having me. I'm excited to be part of this show. I feel like I was an early adopter of Rapid Recon and Dennis's team. I'm about 20 years in the business. That seems to be the benchmark now. I had hair back then. Yes, Dennis, I did have hair. But I tell you what, I feel like I've grown with Rapid Recon and its technology, and it's changed over the years. And Dennis can allude to that, of how it's adapting to the business of reconditioning cars. My background, I'm a general manager at an Audi Volkswagen store. But my background is fixed ops. I was a fixed ops director, reconditioning manager. I kind of took on a different path to the general manager chair. And I think to that, it really helps my team. I can communicate my team why reconditioning and time to line is so important. Every dealership's different, but I think the big things, and even in that video, that promo video, you could tell the passion behind how important it is to get cars to sell fast. And the communication and team building exercises, holding accountability measures. I lived that, Dennis, where we were, and Jeff and Ian, where we were battling with used car managers and service managers, and everybody had their best case scenario on, and everybody couldn't do anything wrong. Well, this program really is fully transparent, you know, and it's about the users and how efficient we use it. So I'm excited to still be part of the Rapid Recon family. I think it's still challenging. Every year is different. And I tell you what, I'm just glad that we have a tool to use.
Thanks for that.
Terrific. Thank you very much. By the way, I understand in the Rapid Recon program there that there isn't a clock that turns off your recon counter on busy days in service, or when the used car managers got a day off or something. In the old days, of course, it was like, oh, no, that doesn't count because there wasn't any appointments in service. Oh, there was a Tech 6, so we'll just reset the clock. It's sort of like the days to turn. Thank you, Ryan. Next, we have Bradley Orr with us from Rapid Recon, which you might guess by the stuff behind him. Bradley, please introduce yourself. And again, I was told by him that I must introduce him as Bradley, as his mother might be watching. Hi, Mom. And I'm just kidding. Go ahead, please.
Hey, you said the quiet part out loud there. Good morning, everybody. Yes, Bradley Orr. I'm in the Northern California area and been doing used cars exclusively for 20 plus years, kind of like Ryan said. And I came from a space where I was a GSM for a large independent, sort of a CarMax before CarMax was CarMax, and I knew every car. I knew it by name. I bought it. I touched it. I smelled it, and I knew every single car. And if anybody wanted to know anything, all they had to do was find me, call me, text me, email me, right? And then I was a wholesaler for about 5 years. Same thing, small inventory. I knew every car, everything else. Then what happened is I became a recon director for this owner that I came to know. And all of a sudden I'm babysitting 8 stores. And well, that was when I learned about another layer of this process. And Rapid Recon was something that we researched and brought in, and I was a customer for a little while. So now what's happened is we have a performance team that comes in and analyzes what's going on, and we go right through everything. So some of the focus that happens, this team has refined quite a bit, and now the people kind of analyzing everything that's going on. We have 2 used car guys like me. We have 2 service managers at the franchise level, and we have a new performance manager who came from that CarMax, Vroom, Carvana kind of space. So that's what we're doing, and it's the word that I use is focus, and we get people to kind of slow down, shut the door, put their headphones on. Let's talk about this thing that you described with 2 words, but in actuality, 5 things happen in a row, right? So we kind of get down to the nitty gritty nth degree of that.
Well, terrific. Thank you very much. As Ian will go on in a minute, him and I were just at Used Car Week in San Diego. And, Dennis, you mentioned about the little phone in our pocket, and a little tidbit, which doesn't have anything to do with used cars, is we took a tour of the display aircraft carrier, the Midway, and they actually had something that shows a 2005 iPhone that it has more computing power than all the computers on that ship at the time, like 34 times the computing power. But nevertheless, Ian, take it away.
Yeah, I mean, we were obviously talking a lot about used cars with a lot of different people at the show, whether it was people cleaning used cars. There was a company there that's trying to clean marijuana out of cars. There was companies that repo cars. There was companies that transport cars. There was all kinds of companies there. But the biggest issue, obviously, with used cars, especially as the market continues to change, is how do you improve reconditioning and time to line? There's a lot of dealers who want to buy cars. They want to sell cars. They want to figure out how to buy the best ones and reconditioning the best. But to Bradley's point, I mean, realistically, can they manage that inventory of 1 to 50 or 100 or 300 rooftops effectively? But not only that, adjust to a changing marketplace. And maybe I'll start with Bradley on that. What do you think Rapid Recon does to improve reconditioning versus just you and your memory?
So there are a lot of answers for that. Most importantly, from our standpoint, the work begins for us when somebody becomes our customer. That's really where we go in and start diving deep. Because we all know most of the folks underneath all these rooftops are paid for performance, and they're paid for, on volume and commission and everything else. Well, them slowing down and concentrating on how to make something better, that's kind of an intangible, and they don't see that in the paycheck they're working on right now till they pay for Christmas, right? And that's all they think about. It's like, whoa, let's talk about this for a second. And that's our goal, and getting them to stop and do that. One of the things that we show them over time is Somebody like Ryan, he's learned all these things over the years. Well, what we're going to do is help the store create a checklist with what he remembers and what he knows. And then this almost brand new person has this question right on their phone. And somebody in 3 days doesn't find out they didn't know that yet, right? So it kind of like Freakonomics, these people, they can become experts in a short period of time, and we can help them out quite a little bit. And that's our job. That's our job. And our, the thing I like to say, we are going to be your most cost-effective employee. And the return on investment for us, this is kind of like my old F&I manager hat, right? Reduction to the ridiculous. It's about $1 an hour to be our customer. And the ROI is going to be amazing when you break it down to that level.
So Ryan, what do you think about the ROI? Obviously looking at the improving reconditioning, but what did you notice before and after kind of deal?
Very, very good. I think the ROI increased greatly when you can, share and explore those costs together as a team and in front of the customer. We use that relationship to be fully transparent, and this tool bridges that trust of that process, because you can explain a process, but if you can show it in steps, even with our employees, the technicians, I can talk to blue in the face, but if we have a program that we all can use and see, you can see how the cars trickle through to the time to the line. And that builds trust. And I think with good trust and a good foundation, you're going to have better ROI.
Not at all. Dennis, what do you think?
Oh boy, this is where I came into this picture. Well, the first thing when I saw what was going on, which it was a general manager, owner of a Lexus dealership, was the one that grabbed me and said, "Hey, we really don't know what we say." And so the first thing was, okay, these people don't trust anybody else's numbers. I mean, they just don't, So we've got to give them something in their hand or on their desktop. They can say, okay, I can see what I'm supposed to be working on. And when I'm done, I'll press this button and everybody knows that I'm done. Okay. And it moves on to the next thing. So it was kind of like, they need to be able to control their own accountability. Everybody talks about accountability, but I found everybody wants everybody else to be accountable. Okay. So, but you got to give the people that are doing the work something in their pocket, their hand, whatever. It says, okay, this stuff's in my bucket. When I'm done, nobody needs to ask me anything. I don't want to slow down. So this will let them know what's going on. And this whole industry is driven by a lot of built-in behavior. And I would say that anything that's an obstacle for the people in this industry to get a car serviced or to get it sold, they're going to do it. They're going to work around it because that's what they do. I mean, and if you're an obstacle, then you're going to get worked around too. Or if you make people look bad, you're going to do that. So our task and what we've worked at is to make this accurate and help them see that we go in and there are people that are just working around stuff and you can't believe their numbers because they've never gotten to a point where they see how much easier it is for everybody once they kind of get the handoffs right, the fire brigade. And that is a real situation. And a lot of times, as Bradley said, we have to go in and actually show them. We got to slow them down and actually get them to see that. But once they make it, once they get to that point, like Ryan has, and a lot of our dealers, and they're all GMs. I mean, they're GMs that have group people that are on their backs about things, but the GMs, because it starts and stops there. They're the ones that call the shots. And if they have the right metrics going on, then they can ask the right questions. They don't have to do it. They just have to know what questions to ask. And that moves the whole process along. And pretty soon you get into a cadence. I like to think of this. I rode crew in college for a while. I like to think of this as, everybody's hitting the oar at the same time. And it's an amazing feeling because all of a sudden that boat just jumps in the water, and you hit that stride, and everybody feels it. You know, everybody's in the same boat.
Fantastic.
So that's my bit about that. It is managing your own accountability. Because if you're an obstacle, you're going to get worked around, because people at the end of the day, they have to get the job done. So you've got to make it easier for them to want to be accountable.
Fantastic. Jeff?
So right now, one of the biggest things the biggest thing we talk about now, other than the evil empire, which, by the way, I have to say that Used Car Week did a good job of bringing them into the fold, because even though they're not as big a deal as they were, they have seemed to have stopped their evil empire attack on dealers. But they did bring them in. They did mention them because they are part of the used car business. And in a way, perhaps the idea of keeping them close and an eye on them is better than just, shutting them out. However, that's got nothing to do with what I was going to ask. I just had to say that. We know very well the current situation. Inventories are low. Supply is low. People are paying through the nose. So at the moment, we understand the future. At the moment, why does somebody need to have something like Rapid Recon when they can get that car sold and do a quick safety inspection and a car wash and still make money on it? So I'm going to actually throw that right to Ryan, because we're going to get from the dealer side, because of course we know what Dennis and Bradley are going to say anyway. But Ryan, you don't have to say this. You have to answer though.
I do have to answer. Yeah, no, I think it's super important, even when inventory levels are low, to get that car quickly turned, because our best acquisition is a trade. So if we can get those cars up to the front line quick and have that process using Rapid Recon, that we can make more money on a trade than we can acquisition in a buy. So it's not just because we have low levels and the cars are hard to get. There's plenty of cars out there that are super expensive, but you have to get them to turn quickly. And if you don't have a process to do that, you're gonna struggle. So I think it doesn't matter if we're overstocked in inventory or less. I think the importance of how quickly you get cars through reconditioning is paramount.
Terrific. No, it's a very good point. And I talk to people all the time. Ian talks to people all the time. A lot of processes have gone right out the window at the moment. It's why do we have to do a discovery or a qualifying of the customer? The customer says, I need a car. What you got? I need a small car. And they go, well, I got a 2007 Escalade. Why don't you take that? Oh, okay. It's not that bad, but thanks for that, Ryan.
Yeah, no problem.
Brian. I mean, Bradley.
Being in a hurry used to feel like an intangible. And I always knew, it's like, I need to move faster. I need to make sure this car's done by Thursday, so I get my pictures done, so it's online for the weekend, so the phone doesn't ring, or the phone rings. And I knew I was always supposed to do that, but it was always intangible. And getting everyone else to have a little bit of a sense of urgency and a sense of ownership of what was going on, that was the work. And what started happening was, things need to move. So what's happening now is, I remember, I'm in a Kelley Blue Book part of the country, and I remember when Kelley Blue Book went from, we got an update every 2 months. The book changed every 2 months on around the 20th. So if you bought a car, you had some time for that book drop. And it was a big deal when the book came out. We're like, you got the advance sheet? Now, and I remember 14 years ago, right around this time of year, they went from 2 months to 1 week. Every Friday, the book changed. So that was a new world. Well, that's the world now. So the only way in this market, and really in this kind of a market, the only way to make a profit and or not get burned with whatever your exit plan is, or if you don't have one, the only way to make it work is to sell something quickly and be on your game. And it ensures that you will either make a lot of money quickly. We have a group that analyzes that, how much money their front ends are. Literally the number between 14 and 21 and 28 and 35 days, it starts to shrink very quickly. And that's that's the only way out. And they've gotten to the point where they know if it's a rental return at 21 days, that's a break-even car for them. And their only chance is to take a trade or make some money in the back. That's how quickly they know they have to work. And it's absolutely incredible. So that's the market we're in. So being in a hurry is not an intangible anymore. There is definitely some hard math that can be put to this, and that's that.
Terrific. Now, that's a very good point. And there is actually a correlation between making more money and spending more money on reconditioning that's necessary too. It's interesting. When I got into the business, the mindset was, well, let's see how we can cut a corner. Yeah, no, those brakes at 20%, that's fine. They're not going to die. We don't have to do the brakes and that sort of stuff. And now we're kind of looking at it from a different standpoint. It translates to more money if you make the car better. Dennis, what's your take on this? Is there success there right now by not doing a proper reconditioning process?
Yeah, no, that never that never pays off. Everything's online now. If you don't do it right, somebody's going to say something, and you're going to look bad. So your reputation's a big deal. But I think to kind of further the point Bradley's talking about, and Ryan, you need, if you have a repeatable set of processes and they're all tied together and they're all changing constantly, because this is a reactionary industry. Customer comes along, all of a sudden that's the most important thing. So you have to have a model. You have to have something works, so you can break it or you can modify it. So the way I look at it, and the reason this has worked so well, started with Toyota at the end of World War II. I mean, it goes all the way back to volume production before it hit Silicon Valley. Was if you're going to be able to go through ups and downs. I mean, COVID was a big example. The chips. I mean, how do you recover from that? Well, if you have a model that you can work, you can go back and scale that up and down. Same thing with reconditioning, and the components of that are going to change constantly. People leave and come or get sick. You're opening up a reconditioning center. All these things are going to change, but you have to get it right at a certain point, so you can scale it as you go along. Otherwise you can't measure it. Measure, manage. It's got to be there, and it's a constant. But I'll kind of lay this back, and Ryan's been through this, multiple times. Once you get it right, and you've experienced that, okay, everybody's hitting the oar at the same time, you know what it's like. You know what it'll be like, and you always want to get back to that. A lot of times, as these groups have acquired a lot of other groups and things like that, they need our help. Like Bradley, we've got some people with all the background, and they're moving so fast. They know that what they need to do, but they don't have enough time to actually think it through. So we're out there helping a lot of these groups in the stores think through. Okay, so where are we? What do we do next? And so we become kind of a partner in measure and manage to stores and groups. And to me, that's where the big money is. That's the big money is. So that's how I see that. And we've gotten very good at this thing. But again, it's just, we're still chipping away. There's still a bunch of people out there that said, well, I have a different way to do it, or I used to do it like this, or, we don't want to spend a few $100s for this thing called workflow. I can do that on my spreadsheet. There's still way too much of that out there. So for those of you, your customers that are out there, I'm just throwing this out there, because if you're one of those people that have been dragging your feet about doing this, you're just throwing money away. I mean, and we can help you figure that out.
Yeah, I mean,
Hey, Dennis.
we had the opportunity at Used Car Week to meet some of the heavy hitters in used cars that happen to also own new car franchises. And people always ask them, how do you get to that 500 used cars on their lot? I guarantee you it's process driven, but go ahead.
Hey, Dennis. Yeah. It's Larry Feldman. I'm kind of the third wheel on the Auto Hub show. I'm a trainer and recruiter, and don't feel bad because I've had at least 4 people reach out to me this week and say, I heard you can get texts. I'm desperate. So don't be desperate. I can help you. That was the call I made to them. It's a week later. I haven't heard back. Thank God the car business isn't tied in with emergency services or everybody be dead, because their concept of expediency is zero. And Jeff likes it when I'm religious, so the Lord helps those that help themselves. Rest my case.
Oh gosh, yeah.
But Ryan, you had a thought there? Did you have a thought there, Ryan?
Yeah, I think the important what Dennis is saying is how good Rapid Recon is, and it's the best product. I'm not just trying to blow smoke. It's just as fragile as who's leading that charge in your store. And with turnover and how the labor market is, it's so crucial to have a good foundation of other managers or other key people, champions in your store that uphold that Rapid Recon process or the reconditioning process. That's one of the challenges through the years I've had is keep trying to be a champion, hold that flag of it's so important. And so it is interesting when the human gets involved, it can mess things up if it's not right. So,
but you guys said it beautifully at the beginning. It's all about expediency. The faster a salesperson can effectively and professionally, not rush, but effectively complete a deal, the faster he can get to the next deal. The amount of money that's lost in getting cars out of the shop and onto the lot, not only the customers you meet, but the added expense and the floor plan, it's crazy. But it's I'm sure all of you are realizing how so many people, for every sharp dealer, there's 10 guys that don't even pay attention to that. It's frightening. They don't even know that status report should be the first thing on their desk every day, followed shortly by a follow-up on what deals are pending.
Yeah. I mean, when you look at companies like, for example, McDonald's, if they didn't have a process to make the Big Mac, for example, probably wouldn't be that great a restaurant. A buddy of mine in high school worked at McDonald's and thought he could make Egg McMuffins differently. They're like, no, that's really not what we do here. But anyway, what do you see and hear from dealers on their predictions for next year? We obviously had a little bit of that used car week, but what do you think, Bradley, on the prediction side of things for 2023?
Well, the prediction, I think, is probably more uncertainty. And that's going to be, the only constant is change. And man, the calendar used to be the calendar, right? And the car business started President's Day weekend. We were going to be busy for 60 days, tax refunds, and then everybody that had to write a check took over, and it was dead for the first half of April. And then we kind of sat around, and then it was Memorial Day. We were busy all summer, and I had to make sure I was off all my wholesale junk by Halloween, and then it was slow, and then it was February 15th again, right? Like that was the whole year. We knew that, and man, it's not like that anymore. And it's changing. And I think that's the only prediction that I've heard. And, really that is dependent on what manufacturer these guys are with. Ford guys, they know this much and they don't know that much. And then the Honda guy, it's completely separated on the franchise side. On the independent side, they don't have anything that they can count on. They can't count on 60 new cars a month to get this, to get that, to get that. Those guys are out there. They are grinding at the CarMax auction every Monday morning, or whatever their plan is for buying cars every week. That's what they're doing. They do not know. And obviously on the used car side, this is where I come from. The rates right now, getting everything done, and all the macro stuff, so they can control where am I going to buy my cars, and then they can control everything except how many customers can I get my hands on. Right, that's number starting to shrink, anybody can go out and buy cars. I always told them that. I can have 500 cars out there if you want. There's only gonna be 75 of them you can sell and make a profit, right? So that's the easy part. But I think what are they predicting? It's more like what's next. That's what they're predicting.
That was the interesting thing to bring up the Evil Empire. They asked him the question, what do you think is going to happen in the next 6 to 8 months? And he said, I really don't want to comment on that. So Dennis, what do you think? You're obviously big into data, but more importantly, from a tech background, what do you think? What are you seeing out there?
Actually, what does your electronic crystal ball show?
What was the algorithm telling you?
Well, yeah, that's exactly right. I've got some groups that are saying things are slowing down. We're getting back to margin compression. We're only, this is a group with 20, some stores, very sharp operator. We're only replacing what's been sold. We're not building inventory. That's one side of the coin. Then others, I've seen with a 60-day supply. And so it's kind of all over the map from what I see. And it probably comes right back to my original thing. You got to have a model for turning the dials up and down in terms of both speed and change. But we still have the biggest challenge, I think, and dealers have found other sources for cars. The buying centers have been pretty successful, so they've got a new way to get cars that they like, you know. But I think we're going to see a lot of change in the coming year. I hear that, because of what happened last year when there was a 5-day supply a year ago, our salespeople have forgotten how to sell. Not having to work at selling anymore because everybody's falling all over them to buy cars, and you know they're making $4 or $5 grand gross and stuff like that. And so that's a problem. There's a problem with technicians and the change in the technology as more is coming in. So I'm hearing, hey, we're going to have to get probably younger, more tech savvy people both on the sales side. And then we've got to continually either upgrade or find new sources for techs because this stuff's getting more sophisticated. And everybody's got to have something electric somewhere. We've seen some groups go and try and put it all in one place and consolidate that somewhere because, again, it's got a whole different set of variables. I think in this coming year, we're going to see the predominant business for the franchises and for the independents is going to be used cars, and how much money they're making per car is going to depend directly on time to line. I mean, that's going to be the ultimate measure. And I'm seeing other things too that I didn't even think about 2 years ago, which is that the customers now want to know everything about what's going on. They want to go and look at the information on the dealer's website. They don't want to see just the Carfax. They want to see the reconditioning information, and they want to see the window stickers, and so they're looking for this, and they don't want it to be somebody to tell them about it. They want to look at it themselves. Hey, they've all been buying on Amazon, so they're used to doing their own evaluations. And we don't have that right. We're working very hard to try and get what reconditioning was up there, get it to them, so they don't have to ask anybody. So I see that coming along. I think we have a much smarter buying folks. They're also going to keep these cars longer. They're going to pay a premium. So we have to work with the dealers to help them keep those customers in, keep them happy, so that you're building a life cycle with the customer as well, not just the car, but with the customer. And so I see this as starting to mature a bit, but there's still so many fundamental things. I mean, the ones that actually get it are going to move faster. The ones that don't, they're going to be behind, and their profitability is going to suffer.
That was
So,
Hey, Dennis.
Yeah.
I absolutely agree with everything that you said about how the consumers want to know more and need to know more, which of course is an advantage for everybody that's paying attention and knows how to share the information. But I've been saying for years, we've needed the sales and the service department to dial in more, because it's the oldest trope in the world that if you lose the people in service, they don't come back to buy a car. Plus, for many years, the back end penetration is what kept dealers in business or profitable, depending on how they run the organization. So there needs to be a knowledge that, hey, listen, welcome back to service. That's why it's so astonishing that 9 out of 10 people never get walked back to service. These are the folks working on your car. Here's the little extra things we'll do for you. So it really just comes down to what you said, that if your process is strong and you're tying everybody in it, and there's clear information for your customer, you're going to have a hell of a chance to succeed. When these shakeups come, it always seems like the people that are better prepared do better, and the people that were shaky to begin with, and were relying on a great business model that everybody wants to drive, not to walk. But I think you'll see a lot of changes just because a lot of dealers not prepared to organize will fall by the wayside or get bought out.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that you bring that up, and Ryan, maybe you have an opinion on that. I'm sure you do. But when we were talking a little bit, that pre-Carman interview, he was talking a little bit about data historically, and there was all this talk about how, all the dealers have figured out, all the OEMs have figured out, they're going to go to this model. And he's like, well, the data doesn't really back that up. It's very interesting. But go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, no, I agree with Dennis and some great points. I feel like this conversation of what's going to happen next year, I'm going to be talking about a lot over Thanksgiving, because that's what relatives do. They want to know kind of what we think. And I tell you what, just a lot of noise, more of the same. I agree with what Bradley said, and I think it's just trying to whittle through the EV market, how that affects dealers, a lot of noise around that, the rebate, interest rates here in our southwestern Wisconsin is a big focus on us as far as how we convert those people from cash to finance. It's just, again, back to what everybody's been talking about, a good foundation of process. I've been through a lot of shakeups in the industry, and you're right, is if you got a good process and a good set of people, you can make it through it. However, I love the conversation around giving the customer more data and more information. One of the things that we're kind of piloting here is we use True Video, which you may not know, a plug for them, but we use video in sales and service to get into that customer's phone. We are doing that with some of our recon process too, so that actually the customer can see the technician working on that potential car they're buying. Again, it's more introduction from sales to service and how that can work. We're trying to refine that, but I think we're trying to connect that customer quickly to the tech and the potential car that they're going to buy.
Yeah, are you seeing a big uptake with video, especially with the TikTok generation?
Yeah, absolutely. And you talk about technicians. I mean, there's a lot of younger. We're blessed with a great set of technicians that's pretty rock solid. A lot of them are younger, and they're all in on that. And I'm championing them to create the format, create the how the video looks, because they're really savvy in it. And the technicians have been doing it for 20 years. They're come along with it too, so they see the excitement around it.
Well, we actually
what you're telling me is
we were in used we were at driving sales, and there was an interesting breakout, and they were talking about how technician videos on TikTok are the most watched videos on TikTok and automotive. Yeah. Go ahead, Jeff.
I would quite enjoy seeing somebody do a little dance as they point to their leaky rear main seal in their car, and then they turn it over to the service advisor with the bill right in front of them.
That's entertainment.
That's funny. We've all known that. I mean, people with sales backgrounds, Larry can attest to this, even though Larry's not an official guest, but he's official with us, it's showtime. When you meet a customer, and I think a service advisor should also make it showtime. And you want to entertain the customer, but inform the customer, make them feel good. But Dennis brought this up about showing this process along the way. And in my used car life, I always avoided rebuilds and salvage cars, because most of the people that fix them they're junk. But I'm involved in a little lot, and we actually use all the pictures that the body shop uses to get the authorities' approval to put it on the road. And people are buying these things because they're actually seeing the fact that 90% of rebuilt cars are not total wrecks. They're just because they scraped the side. But tell me something. We brought that up. And Ryan, I'm looking right at you because we have you featured because you're. I don't show myself when I speak, but we're on the speaker there. So using these processes, we know you're here because we know that it's worked for you. But what do you tell other dealers that say, hey, you know what? I've been doing this for 20 years. My manufacturer gives me a certified program. I just use that for my other stuff. I don't need it. What do you tell them? Because you're not a sales guy.
Right. I ask them, kind of what I've learned through Rapid is, what data points do you look at to know that you're successful? How do you hold your staff accountable? Is it just, and I think, and let them answer that, right? And let them understand and kind of got to plug holes into that or put holes in it, because if you're not there, who's going to do it then? And who's running that reconditioning plan? And it's rock solid. It's there. It's easy to use. The support is great from the team. But I think they have to have. You can't have shared spreadsheets anymore, like we've alluded to. You can't have these things that are all over the map. And the data is accurate. I mean, we get micromanaged to death, right? I have sheets all over my desk right now that have red and green on them right now. But that doesn't mean they're not important. And I think it's you have to have that passion behind making yourself accountable, just kind of what Dennis says, manage your accountability, making sure you're successful with it.
If you can't measure it, you can't manage it.
I want to say one thing. It's interesting. I was listening to everybody talk. It's interesting, and the OEMs now, the new car world is almost adapting a reconditioning process to turn their cars just as quick. We get these cars off the transporter. Now we plug them into how quickly can we get them to the front line, because it's just as important. It wasn't like that 2-3 years ago. New cars were always put in the back burner because used cars is always most important. But now we got to turn to sell to zero on new. And, the processes that we've learned for the pre-owned in our store have helped us greatly get those cars quickly up.
So the feeling I'm getting here too, because you mentioned a little bit earlier too, Ryan, is that this is, it sounds like too, the Rapid Recon's actually building to a stronger team, a cohesive team, because it sounds like you made a comment that it's not like, well, service didn't do this, sales didn't do that. And now there's something that says, well, it was this point that didn't happen, not this person. Is that correct?
Right. It's 100% correct. And I get held accountable because I acquire some cars. And if I don't put my appraisal notes in there, I have the technician in my office. Hey, why didn't you put notes in there? I know then it's working, right? And I think it's interesting to know that less is more. More people that are involved in Rapid Recon is great, but you need key people that from each department, and I single those people out so I can go right to them. Talking with Bradley, I was that person too. I read anything from reconditioning of a car that we ran through our auto group or our small auto group, I knew everything about it. Well, that's good for me. It strokes my ego, but it's not good for the team, right? And I think Rapid Recon puts all that information for 5 or 6 core people or more, depending on what it is. Even the salespeople, they want to know where that car is in the system. They can definitely do that.
Perfect. Bradley, are you hearing the same thing?
Yeah, doing it right the first time is absolutely paramount. And Larry talked about in the back in service, and you get into the absorption thing. So if uncertainty at the front is definitely there, then now we're going to all start talking about absorption because we're not making $6,500 front and back and all the time, right? But getting my thing, one of the things that I concentrate on is if the car's right the first time and it takes the customer like 45 or 60 days to find one little thing they don't like, and they almost feel like they bought a new car, that just blows them away, right? And then it's Thanksgiving, right? You buy a car, everybody wants to see it because you went to visit, and everybody locally walks around that car and they think to themselves, I could go to that place and buy a car and be pretty confident that I'm getting a nice car. That is a nice car. Right. And that is supreme. And going back to the people, the thing Ryan just said, what ends up happening is the salesman that needs the car real quick for Mrs. Jones actually ends up communicating a little bit with the technician who's doing the work. Right. But what happens is these guys who never talk, now they talk once in a while. And now they're on the same page. and pretty soon they're on the same team, and it's a people business, right? And I remember the salespeople that would get frustrated because there was some chaos, they went somewhere else. And the technicians that got frustrated because they weren't getting fed and they knew they could go down the street and make 80% or make 80 hours a week, they started listening when they started getting emails from Indeed, right? So it's really about retention of people. This is a people business where, we're managing cars, we're managing the vendors, we're managing our money, we're managing all of these things, we're managing our time, but the people are, kind of what makes this work. And this can be a little bit more glue, I think.
And maybe even attracting possible employees going, hey, like, we use this software, but not only that, this is the benefit from a dealership or deal group perspective as to what's in it for you. Why should you come work at ABC Motors versus BCD Motors? We have a process, that works, but more importantly, we have integrated teams.
So Dennis, is it true the rumor that there's a new spin-off company called Rapid HR?
Well, I will have to say, no, there's not. And I've been through a bunch of, started a bunch of companies. Most of them haven't worked. That's the advantage. I've got plenty of bruises from having tried things that didn't work and a few dents up here that you probably can't see. And but so you got to know what you don't want to do. I mean, that's most important, especially if you have something called workflow, which can do anything. Everything's a workflow, right? So it becomes your domain knowledge, and you got to stay in your lane. I mean, that's why we're really good at what we do, is because we keep working down our lane and with the and what we've succeeded in doing. Nobody else has done this, because we started at the bottom and worked up with the first guy that said, "Hey, this is a reconditioning thing. Nobody really knows. They're all just making it up." And so when we built this thing, we started at the bottom, and everything is connected to those key performance indicators, to average days in recon and time to line. And that is the biggest issue. I mean, still accuracy and speed are still the big thing. Once you have everybody tied into those numbers, they see them all the time. Everybody sees this in the upper left-hand corner. They kind of know they're all contributing or not to that metric. And that's when it works. That's when it starts to get going. So I go way back to, again, my Hewlett-Packard days when we were all just learning how things like just-in-time manufacturing was a really big deal. Now, and that's why the car business is affordable. That's not quite the same, but you can think it still applies. Okay, why do we need the parts counter involved with this thing? Well, because that needs to be in there. I think one of the videos talked about, hey, we added another back counter person. So everybody has to be tied in, even the salespeople. Now, I dropped by a Kia dealer down the street here from that, not a Kia dealer, actually a Volvo dealer. And I went in and they didn't know who I was. And I just started talking to a couple of salespeople. And I asked them about, I said, well, I'm from Rapid Recon. And they said, we use the salespeople there said, we use this a couple of times a day. Customers call and they want to know what's been done to the car. And so I can tell where the car is and the process, and I can see what's been done. But I think we've got to do a better job of putting the stuff out there in a way that they'd like to see it. That's going to help the whole value proposition. I think right from selling the car to getting it serviced and keeping that into your kind of customer life cycle and your revenue life cycle. Yeah. So that's it. I mean, that's to me, we've got everything. We got the technology now, and I've got everything tied together, and I can prove it. In other words, if things are not working, and Bradley's out there, Ryan's looking at it, saying, I can show you how the cause and effect works, because that's how we built this thing. And nobody else can actually do that. Well, why not? Because all I did is try to figure out a way to give you a report that looks like you know where everything is. So I won't overdo that, but you can't do false positives in this business, because the people doing the work, they've been working around things for a long time. If you can't show them that this is all connected together, they're part of that impact, they'll continue to do what they were doing before.
Yeah, I mean, we used the example, and I think Jeff can speak to this a little bit. Years ago, he worked for Deal Group where they had a report for value of a car, but there was actually a company at the event from Germany, of all places, and they have this really interesting digital window sticker product, which is new to North America, where you can basically, it's based on the Amazon Kindle technology, I think. So basically, you can update all the window stickers on all your used cars simultaneously with one button. And I was sitting there and looking at that going, what if you could also add a reconditioning report onto that window sticker so that it would change? But it was really interesting because it was simple technology. But when you think of 100 to 300 used cars that basically instantaneously you could update remotely, that was really interesting. But go ahead, Jeff.
Oh, I don't know if you really want to do that. It's if you forget to change the car on the ad or you got the car lower than the advertised price, somebody comes in and quickly price gets changed. I don't know about that, but
yeah, we decided we'd have a sale this weekend, and but we forgot to tell everybody. But we put it on the window stickers. Oh, well, that's the worst thing you could do, is to have the window sticker doesn't match what's online.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, in our location here, we have a pretty strong government body that, or not a government body, but it's a dealer body that actually acts as the government's hitman. And there's a lot of dealers that will advertise a car and the price doesn't change on the window sticker, and then they very quickly run back and change the ad. But as we're getting a little bit late in the time, I would like to ask everybody this question here. If there was one thing that you could share, one thing you could tell somebody that doesn't use Rapid Recon, because we know there's nobody else like you, what would that one thing be? And I'm going to start with Bradley, then go Ryan, then leave it to Dennis, because he's like the big kahuna. Bradley.
Yeah. No. I'm at the bottom. Inverted pyramid, guys.
No, I don't think so. The glue for Rapid Recon for me, coming from the people management side, is the communication. There are 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 different things that happen in Rapid Recon with the click of a mouse, and it's done. And the other people who are interested parties, they find out as soon as that's done. So the time efficiencies of it are incredible. A service advisor does that, and they're done. BDC knows, GSM knows, used car manager knows, everybody knows. Parts guy knows, technician knows. It's amazing. So move something with Rapid. There is no more of this. Pick this up, call whoever, text, email, all these separate ways you want to use to let everybody know. My favorite one is walk out in the showroom and yell across the place to the general manager, right? All of that can be gone. It takes a little bit of time, like that video from the Ford guy said. It takes a little bit of time, but once it's rolling and smooth, man, the hamster just doesn't stop.
That's
communication.
That's a really good thing, that the salesman who's on the phone with the customer that says doesn't know if the car is ready, or if they call in on the car and they say come and see it, and they didn't realize that it's waiting for a part, and save some embarrassment. The only downside is you have all 4 salespeople on that same car calling their customer at the same time, and that's a good downside, not a bad one. Ryan,
come on down. Let's have an auction.
There we go. Hey, we can use a real estate term, sold for over asking, which we might get in trouble for. Ryan, what's the one thing you would share?
I would share just, we work too hard not to have a compass. And the compass is, Rapid Recon and really the structure of how you do business in the back end of the store, we struggle with communication and everybody's in the dark. I've heard a lot of people go, well, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on. Well, this is the tool that lightens you up on that. And we acquired some stores recently and they're not on the program. And I have been that proponent. I've been, what do you do? And some of the stores are fairly large. So, it's key. It's if you want to feel good and go home and feel like you have a productive day, Rapid Recon will let you know that.
Perfect. That's a very good point. Dennis, we're going to leave it to you to be self-effacing and modest and everything, and tell us what's the one thing you would share.
Well, so when I came into this thing, it was about the blame game. That was what was going on, and that's the most destructive thing you can imagine, because nobody will take a responsibility. Everybody wants everybody else to be accountable. Well, we fixed that. I mean, it's taken a long time, but we've got that figured out so that everybody's kind of being measured on the same basis. And that's what everybody wants. Everybody wants to be either show what they can do, starting with the technicians, by the way, all the way to the customer's decision. And they all want to do a good job. But if they don't believe in the accountability, all they want to do is get paid. And that's just not enough. So we figured out how to tie all these things together so everybody can feel comfortable their part is being represented because they've got control of it. So I'll leave it with that, because that's the secret sauce. That's the magic of kind of the believability. The accountability has to work for everybody equally.
Perfect. It's a very good point. Gentlemen, thank you all for being here. We greatly appreciate it. Personally, I'd like to thank Rapid Recon for the support of the Auto Hub show. And even though he's incognito, I want to thank Jim Lehman. He's a very big proponent and our little guardian angel. So we appreciate that too. Not saying Larry, you're not, but Dennis, I'm going to leave it to you to close it. But Dennis, thank you so much. I appreciate the good words. Love the chat before about the aircraft carrier. Bradley, thank you. And Ryan, love having a dealership's viewpoint on this. And Ian, I'll leave it for you to close.
Yeah, used cars today are more important than ever, but more importantly, as the market shifts, if you don't understand the recon piece, you really need to take a closer look at it. So you need to check out Rapid Recon, different people here, but more importantly, see a demo, because at the end of the day, it's about to get really hard in the car business. And this became very true at Used Car Week. And I think if you can't pivot and don't understand what's going on, you need to, because it's just that important. Have yourself a great week. Happy Thanksgiving to our American listeners. I know that's coming up. We've already had ours. And don't shop too hard on Black Friday. And
thank you.
We're out. Here we go.
Thank you, the Auto Hub guys. You guys are a terrific show, and thanks for inviting us.
No problem. Our pleasure. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks for joining us. It was a great show, and follow us anywhere you would like on your favorite podcast, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and of course on our YouTube, or subscribe to our own channel.